Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BC, and you know everything. Yo, how are ya? I'm kind of excited about this one because I am working through this challenge in very real time. And also, we've all been working through this challenge all of our lives. And it's essentially, how do we manage up? And what I mean by that is we are all participants in a much bigger system and structure than we can possibly fathom. And there are layers and there are microcosms within the various universes and meta universes and so on and so forth, right? And these are constructs we probably cannot change. There will be stereotypes and assumptions and communication that we are forced to participate in that we never chose and don't even necessarily understand like enough that we can successfully navigate through that. So it was very we started off very high level there, BZ. This episode is called The Golf Cult. And no, it is not an episode about golf. If you know me, I don't know shit about golf. I know nothing about sports ball. I think they have touchdowns. I am pretty sure it happens outside, and it is mainly a drinking activity that people masquerade as a DUI endorsed quote unquote sport. So, the fact that I don't play it is actually weird because if you let me drive a small vehicle around buzzed while I get to whack things hard, I mean, that sounds like a good freaking time, especially outside. Like that like seals the deal. But it's weird. No one wants to teach me how to play golf. So there's that. You know what I'm going to say next. I digress. The reason I called it The Golf Cult is a client of mine sent me a picture of them in their boardroom celebrating something. And I said, this looks like the invitation to join your golf cult. And I'm scared. This is the whitest, oldest thing I've ever seen. And I'm not here to vilify white people. Hi. Nor am I here to vilify old people, but we just recorded an episode called Skibbity. If you know, you know. It is managing down. This episode is going to be about managing up. And what I meant with sort of these like macro constructs within which we are all forcibly participating, there are things like capitalism and the patriarchy and colonialism and Western culture, so on and so forth. And within that, there are expectations around our elders and the youth, as I referred to them over and over again in the last episode. But oftentimes, as you grow in your experience and expertise at work, you will suddenly find yourself working with people that are older than you, potentially generationally older than you. And they might be in a position of power, they might not. And again, with growth and maturity and expertise and wisdom and social proof and confidence and competence, you might not only be at a peer level, but you might be managing people who are older than you. And they think of you the same way you think of the youth. They think you are cocky, that the way you communicate, the way you appear, I am posing right now, is inappropriate and unjust and undeserving of whatever position and or power you may be exploiting. So this is different than managing down. Managing down has a lot more to do with assumptions, a lot more to do with context, a lot more to do with communication, right? Like it really is about kind of trying to find an understanding and I was going to say leading with an open heart, excuse my woo, just really opening up to possibility. And I love to lead with, what if you have something incredible to offer that I'm not even aware exists because I'm old? That absolutely applies to anyone in an older generation. But I think there's something very different at play here. And I have retired from a career. So I'm going to talk about that experience, not from a place of a particular age or number, but from the energetic standpoint that I love to go on and on and on about. And we have so much attachment and identity and ego wrapped up in our job title. And especially if you come from a different time, it truly defined you, at least in the United States. And I think for a long time, our job title was synonymous with who we are. And I actually still think that that applies. I also think that can be more gender specific or culturally specific, but those are conversations for different podcasts. The point being, when you feel like something is coming to an end, oh, I forgot. I did a podcast about this as well. It's called Unhappy Endings. I wrote a big old blog too. You should check it out. Anywho, when you think that something is coming to the end, we're kind of hardwired to believe that's bad. And whether we believe we're coming to the end of our career, whether we believe we're coming to the end of our life, whether we believe we're coming to the end of our role within this organization, it's hard to not have that show up alongside fear and potentially some resentment, retribution, regret, etc. So it's a lot of that level 1, 2 energy. And anytime I've experienced significant challenge with someone from a generation up, it's usually been resistance to me. I am not sugarcoating it. I am not showing up soft and gentle. And I probably am not interpreted as being respectful, although I do believe that I am. But, based on the way that I look, I know that older generations have some opinions, right? And may question my experience, may question my expertise, may question my validity in the particular roles, especially with my job now coming in as a quote unquote outsider, right? But when I put on the lens of 1, 2, and I recognize they feel threatened and or intimidated, and I mean, at the end of the day, challenged by myself, we're moving into that 1, 2 tension. And what happens is white knuckling the status quo, very much arguing for what is an absolute admonishment of what could be. And also kind of depending on the roles and responsibilities of these individuals, it's usually backed by data, it's backed by experience, by case studies, by this underlying assumption I couldn't possibly know because I'm young, but also because I haven't been around. I don't have their same experience. And despite the data or the case studies or the defense that has been created, there's not a lot you can say or do to combat, well, you just wouldn't understand because you haven't been here. Here's the thing. I don't need to combat that. And that's when we meet level 1 and 2 with 1 and 2 with more resistance, more defense, more combative communication, it's going to compound. So, like I said, this one is a little bit tough because I am in it. And I would like to say that I've created success from this experience. And I've absolutely been able to create the impact and the results that was expected in that particular time. And I'm going to kind of go back through my entire career here. And every time I've been faced with this issue of managing up. And the reality is this is everything to do with the energy behind the action. When we're managing down, we are in the place of power. And therefore, we're kind of starting at level 5. And granted, we dip down to level 2 where we're being assumptive, we're being doubtful, we are also being resentful. We also might have regrets if we're assuming that the quote unquote youth are quiet quitting, are slacking off, are unproductive, are disrespectful, don't get it, undervalue. Sure. But the difference here is that you're in the place of power. And in this particular context for this episode, dealing with the golf cult, they are in the place of power. There's a private club and you're not invited to it because you're not old enough. And that's really what we're talking about here. I'm gonna have a sip of my beverage because it's Friday afternoon, y'all. If you've been paying any attention, there is a specific character in my narrative right now who is absolutely providing this antagonist role. And what I realized is that they are nearing the end of their career, not just this job, but their career. This is potentially coinciding with some end of life stuff, as you get into 7, 8 decades on this earth. You're certainly closer to that than you were to the beginning, right? And depending on what's going on in this individual's actual life, who knows? They could be dealing with loss of relationship, loss of security, loss of consistency. I mean, there's just a lot of change going on. And again, these energies compound. This isn't about resolving the situation. And this is why I wanted to kind of bring in those overarching constructs within which we are participating. Again, last episode, there are resolutions available. There are absolute conclusions that can occur. With this, that may not happen. And when you have someone who's having a very large level 1 or 2 experience, they feel like they're being victimized, and also they feel like they have to fight for their existence. It is not my job to change that. It's not my job to change it on the youth's behalf either. You can't make anybody feel anything, right? There is an opportunity to acknowledge and validate. And when someone is having a very big feeling, that is probably the best thing that can be done. They are absolutely entitled to process that energy. And the way that that happens is feel it. Now, in a professional setting, that might not be the most appropriate context. So they can be invited to go and experience that feeling elsewhere, or they can ask to do just that. But if this is an ongoing point of resistance, we are going to need to figure out a way to work with it. And in terms of managing up, there is also a certain level of acceptance, I think, that is necessary because, again, we're assuming they have the power. So recognizing the energy that's in the room. The level 1, someone feels unsafe and insecure. The level 2, someone feels like they are disempowered and they need to get their control back. The level 3, there needs to be an understanding of resources, allocations, timelines, responsibilities, expectations. Level 4, why does all of this matter? Why is this important? Level 5, what are we truly trying to do here? What's the win-win-win? How do we know when we've been successful? Level 6, let's assume all of that exists in the same room with each other. How do we want to approach this? And when you're able to kind of climb that energetic ladder, you are going to at least address every point of resistance along the way. And that is all you can ever do. You can do this internally, you can do this externally. But, another individual who I know is dealing with this is my dad. My dad has just lost his life partner. He's just lost his best friend. He is about to retire. I made him move out of his house. He's losing in his experience, he's losing so much. But the bigger thing is he's losing some of these constructs that have kept him secure, his identity, his income, his physical home and structure, a marriage, and I have no idea what it would be like to lose those particular constructs. So it's not fair for me to judge or have opinions. Now, I do have to coexist with this individual, and we do have a lot of things that we need to accomplish together. So by simply acknowledging the energy in the room, it creates space for all of it. And I no longer have to fight for myself or defend myself or convince him of or push him to. All I can recognize is what's happening in this moment. And so as we're planning, we're reallocating resources and responsibilities and expectations. If he changes his mind, I would have rallied against that before. I would have felt like he was doubting me. He didn't think I could do something. I was capable of something. I was responsible of something. Now it's just like, man, you're having a really big feeling. I can understand why you would think this is super, super important. And I'm going to trust you to get whatever it is you think you need done. And if I can't make that happen in a certain timeline, because I am still working, I am not in your physical proximity anymore. This isn't my role or responsibility, even if you think it should be. And I'm a bad person because it's not. All of that gets to just simply be what it is, which is in existence. When we can see the obstacle, we then have the opportunity to ask ourselves, how do I want to get around it? And let's assume we ain't moving that obstacle. It ain't getting any smaller, any slimmer, any shorter, right? Any less prickly. But we can see it. And I think that's one of the things, although there might be in a place of power, you have a very unique vantage point from the outside in. And admitting that you might not have all of the right answers. I might not have the very best singular solution in this instance. I have ideas. You continually shut down because you think I'm an idiot or I'm irresponsible or I'm unreliable or whatever it is. And it's so interesting to me to record these episodes back to back with each other because it truly is just the other perspective, right? And when you take, I don't want to say responsibility, but you are able to move yourself up this energetic ladder. And generationally speaking, I'm specifically referring to, the sort of older Gen Xers and boomers. Those are generally the generations that are above me. There are stereotypes that absolutely apply to my father for sure, in terms of his emotional availability and just intelligence and self-awareness. These were just simply not concepts that were of value for most of his life. And to expect somebody to be able to climb the energetic ladder or even recognize energy as a state of being and not an emotional state or a mental state or a physical state is a big ask. And quite honestly, a conversation I'm not really interested in having, because it would be like speaking French to somebody who's a Polish native, right? He actually is fluent in French, but so not a great example. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? When we are triggered, when we feel defensive, when we feel like we're being attacked, when we feel like we're being pushed out, when we feel like we're being threatened, we go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn response. We do anything in our power to get away from it. And what happens is it is most easily done by simply othering the person, by going, you're young, dumb, and full of, right? You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can't, because you were inexperienced, especially in comparison to moi. So having a confrontational conversation with somebody where you are essentially trying to win so they lose is doing just that. That is not going to be the way to navigate around this obstacle. Understanding the energy that they're in and ways to work with it. And so by recognizing this person feels threatened, therefore they are in defensive mode, all they want is power. How can I give them the power that they seek? How can I actually build up trust? This might take longer than I had expected. They don't trust you. That's why they feel threatened. It is your job to build trust. And you can ask them, how can I prove myself? How can I build trust with you? And honestly, the first thing is going to be time. It's going to be consistency and proof. And again, we're just flipping this perspective from the last episode. What does that look like for them? Probably data, probably resources, systems, documentation. And no, they're not going to read the email. Like that, it's not their favorite form of communication. They might want to have a sit down meeting with you. They might need to see you in the office. They might need to know that you're online after they are and before they are. There are certain indicators that are going to show them you are interested in getting their approval. You might also never get their approval. That might not be what this is about at all. All I'm suggesting is there are success indicators, right? We just talked about that. There are markers for success. I remember having this conversation with my dad when he realized how successful I was in the music industry. And he kind of went, oh, like your tattoos and and your fucks and shits. This is how you build trust with your people. If you showed up to work in a suit like me, you would be one of the suits and inherently untrustworthy. And I was like, you finally get it. You don't see me, but you get it. Now, I choose to show up the way that I do, very aware of the fact I am not going to earn the trust of people because of the way that I look. And it's a really fun game for me because I like being underestimated. I think that actually is like a huge advantage in this whole little game that we're playing. But that's just me. I operate the way that I do. It works for me. But recognizing that it doesn't make somebody a bad guy or an idiot or an oldie. It doesn't make you a punk or a criminal, but recognizing there are going to be these assumptions and you are choosing to exacerbate them. If you have insecurity around that, That is the energy that behind the action. That is what is going to be responded to. And someone who is seeking power and control, who feels threatened, is going to react to insecurity in a way that probably feels bullying. Now, if you know you are fully empowered to do whatever the fuck you want and talk like a drunken pirate and dress like you're going to the gym when you go into an office setting, firstly, you won't even notice their judgment. But secondly, they're probably going to feel threatened because of your confidence and your security, and they will sense that power. What do you do with that? How do you respond with that? I'm actually curious. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you create a safe place for somebody that is in a position of power that inherently feels threatened by you? What we need to do is establish a point of relativity, a point where you can meet them in the middle. You can have a conversation that you feel calm and neutralized in, and you can explore what would a successful relationship, communication style, working experience, what could that look like? What are we both willing to do to get there? They might not have any idea how upset or triggered you are, or vice versa. But if this is a person in power, if this is an obstacle in between you and your success, my friend, this is your opportunity to create the success that you desire. And I would encourage you to move away from the stereotypes and the assumptions about what these generations are, how they show up, what they're thinking, how they're feeling. And instead, I would tune into the energy in the room. And here's the thing, we are all energy all of the time. A boomer is not a level 2, right? We are all 7 levels, and there is a dominant energy that is being experienced. So a safe assumption to make is that if you address the insecurity, the defensiveness, the responsibility, the importance, the desired end, and what it's going to feel like when everybody wins, you'll cover it. Okay? That's how I think we respectfully, earnestly, and purposefully manage up. We don't treat them like we're better or worse. We don't assume there's a right or a wrong. We don't condemn someone for their contextual or cultural upbringing. We advocate for ourselves in this instance. I understand that there might be a perceived opportunity to advocate on the behalf of others. That might be taking on something that is not necessarily your responsibility in this particular context for this particular conversation, right? Bring awareness to the energy that's in the room, address it, do it in a way that is empowering for both parties, and see what you can create together, and create regular check-ins to reinforce and celebrate each win, and you will build trust. I promise. So what I will say is that all of this is actually working. Everything is trending up very positively. And in the past, even when relationships or engagements were severed for whatever the reason, when that was done from this perspective of this is truly the best opportunity for everybody here, the end result was phenomenal. The conversation that exposed that this is the end may have been uncomfortable. There may have been pain experienced from some or all. But when we fast forwarded through the true conclusion, or the next adventure that was experienced, it was fucking awesome. So that's why I have this confidence that you might perceive this obstacle, but you can absolutely get around it in a way that is going to be a win-win-win for everybody involved. But it is up to you to ask for that win-win-win and to explore all of the potentials in achieving it. So thank you. Thank you for making this world a better place for everybody. I appreciate you. You know where to find me. This is part of the summer series. These are short but sweet. I'm doing a little bit of less of the research and the scripting and getting back to some OG style. So I hope you enjoy this slightly more casual, shorter format. And I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here. I wouldn't do it without you.